Hi, this is Terry Bay, and welcome to my stitch instruction series. You've got my website and my email there. If you have any questions when we get done with the video, you want to send me a note or look at my website, I would be happy to see you and hear from you. All right, this stitch is called a cable stitch. Now, on a cable stitch, every stitch on the fabric on the front is going to be diagonal. Everything on the back is going to be horizontal or vertical. To get started, I'm going to show you a cable where all of the stitches are over 2 threads. There can be other sizes, but I think 2 threads is the most commonly used one. All right, so remembering that everything on the front is diagonal. There we go, making sure I keep it centered. To do the first stitch, we're going to count 2 threads. This is down for me. I'm afraid it might be a different direction for you, but 2 threads down, 2 threads over, go to the back. So there we've got a diagonal stitch. Make sure, there we go. To come up for our second stitch, you can think of it 2 ways. You can either count down 2 threads from the top or 2 threads over from the bottom. Either way, it is indeed 2 threads again. I'm going to move this closer and refocus. There we go. Better to see. All right, so here's where I come up. You can see, however you want to think about it, it's 2 threads from either the top or the bottom of the first stitch. Again, 2 threads down, 2 threads over, which also lands us 2 threads down from the bottom of the first stitch. So now you see we have 2 parallel diagonal lines on the front. What we have on the back is 1 straight line. Everything on the back will be straight, either horizontal or vertical. Now to keep going, it gets easier. You're going to come up sharing the hole with the first stitch. Go down to make your diagonal stitch. Come up sharing the hole with the second stitch. So now we're going to just be making 2 diagonal lines on the front of the fabric. Every stitch is over 2 threads, and now every stitch starts coming up sharing the hole with the previous stitch. So we're zigzagging back and forth from these lines to the other. So I did this line, now I'm going to do the next line. And I'm just going to keep going back and forth. Put 1 stitch on one line. Always 2 threads. At least for this version. Others might be over 3 or 4, but 2 is indeed the most common. Coming up, sharing the hole with the first line. Making my stitch over 2. Coming back, sharing the hole with the second line. And it keeps going. Now, if you're just doing 1 row of diagonal stitches, this is all you've got to do. If you're doing a V shape or a diamond shape, then you've got to turn a corner. And I'll show you that after about 2 more stitches. Because as with, I think, almost everything, turning the corner is the hardest part. Changing direction is just the bit that really is the most confusing. Okay, so I'm going to say this is my last stitch before I turn the corner. All right. So I've got two diagonal lines coming down this way, and now I want to change them so they start to move this way. So I'm either going to a V, or maybe it's the start of a diamond. Okay? Our last stitch was this one right here on the outside. The first stitch in the corner turn is the problem child. I call it that because it's the stitch that has to go in the opposite direction of everything else. And it is the one stitch, let me show you the back. So you see now I've got a lovely staircase in the back. Everything's either horizontal or vertical. This is my thread to my away waist knot, so that's not part of the structure of the stitch. Don't worry about that. Okay. This is the one stitch that will go the opposite direction, and it also is the one stitch that will have a diagonal on the back. So for now, all of my stitches have moved down the same direction as I'm traveling. They've gone from here to here. They're all just flowing perfectly. Now, to turn the corner, I'm going to have to count down my 2 threads and over. The other easy way to think about it is you will be coming up 2 threads below the last stitch of the inner line. So, right there. And as I come up from that, I'm going to show you the back. And see, here we've got our diagonal stitch. That's the corner turn. That's the problem child. Now, as I said, this one goes the opposite direction of everything. Instead of coming down our row like every other stitch, it's going to swim upstream. It goes backwards and comes right back up to meet the stitch we just finished. So instead of zigzagging back and forth between our rows, we stay on the same side. See, this is indeed the problem child. And there, how you see I'm going in the new direction. Sorry about that. Now to continue, it goes back to the rhythm we're familiar with. We're going to come up, sharing the hole with the stitch on the inner line. Take our diagonal stitch, come back up, sharing the hole with the outer line. So now we are back to, you can either count down 2 and over 2 or just 2 from the inner line. And here we go, just like we did before. Let me get a couple more stitches in, then I'll show you the back again so you can see the difference in that corner turn. This is one stitch that it really does help to look at the back from time to time, because it will give you a good idea whether you're actually doing the stitches in the right order or if you've kind of gone off the reservation and made up your own order. The only reason that really matters is one of the other things we do with this stitch is to make it a pulled stitch. And if you do it in a different order, then you won't get your holes pulled correctly. So we look at our back. Here was our first row, our one diagonal problem child, and then the rest are all going horizontal and vertical again. So I'll come down and make another corner, just so you see how it works. Now, a lot of times when I get to a corner, oh, sorry, that was way too wobbly. I'm not a professional video maker here, people. I teach professionally, but videos, yeah, you get my stutters and my hand wobbles and all of that. I do try to remember to stop and hold it still so you can see it. I'm going to turn corners so I'm even here. So I need to do 2 more stitches on each line. Now, a lot of times when I get to a corner, I will rotate my fabric Let me do one more stitch and I'll show you. So when I would get to this point, and I have finished the last stitch, then I'll turn my fabric so it's at an angle that feels comfortable to me. Now I'm going to turn it back so y'all see the diamond coming in one orientation. There we go. So this one was my last stitch. Okay? Corner turn. We need to make a diagonal stitch in back. And remember, you should be even with the inner row. Again, 2 threads everywhere. Come back to meet that last stitch we just did. And then continue up the next side of the diamond, so one way to think about it, just like we did before. Well, as I'm going, I think I'm going to just make this a complete diamond and finish it up. So if you want to keep watching, there will be one more corner turn and then the rest of the stitches. If you've seen enough, thank you for watching. If you want to check out my website or give me an email, feel free to. But I'm going to get one more corner turn in there and then come up with a complete diamond. Now the next video, I'm going to do a double cable, which is this single cable that I'm doing now, plus another cable diamond just inside or outside of it. I haven't decided yet. Whoops, that was almost wrong, wasn't it? Because I was thinking about what I want to do next. But when you put the second row of cabling in it, it makes the stitch we call a double cable. And I will do that, yep, we're even, on my next video. So here's my last stitch. Come up diagonally. Come back to meet the last stitch. And then continue up the new direction. When I get it completely finished, I'll show you the back again too. Because in a lot of stitches, but this one especially, seeing the back is just as important as seeing the front. Now, no, I'm not one of the, what we used to call cross-stitch police that will get really upset if your back is not perfect. And honestly, I think looking at the back of someone else's piece is like looking up their skirt. You don't do it unless you've got permission and you know them really well. Having said that, I never do anything on the back that will mar the beauty of the front. That's a big no-no. Almost up there. And then the other thing I'll tell you is how to begin and end the thread. I began it with an away waist knot, which is the easiest and most common way to begin it. If you're really advanced, you can hold the tail and stitch over it, but that gets kind of confusing. And look, they meet just like they're supposed to. So the back. There we are. Horizontals and verticals, except for those little diagonals at the corner, right there. Yep. So once I finished it, I would just take my needle and take it under, about that many stitches in back. Doesn't need to be a whole ton of them. And then snip it off. And I would do the same. I would snip off the knot, thread it on my needle, and secure it under the stitches there. Okay, so that's the cable. Thanks for watching. If you're curious how to do a double cable, there will be another video on my YouTube that is entitled Double Cable. Thanks for watching.